After the Carters left here, then this farm became known as the Henry Cotton Farm. Henry Cotton was living here during the Civil War, and most of the 20th century, this place was known as the Frost Place. Miss Irene Frost and her sister lived here, and then they sold it in probably the late 40s to Mr. Carl McMillan, and he had renters here that worked this farm for him. Then finally, I think he sold it to Miss Notehope in probably the 60s. Hey, welcome, Rick Warwick, Williamson County historian. We're in the head of Waddell Hollow at the original Carter House. I want to take you through a walking tour at a pioneer home that has survived to the 21st century. Okay, we're at the front entrance of the pioneer house that Francis Carter built in 1806. Francis brought his family from Halifax County, Virginia, and settled here in the head of Waddell Hollow, which at the time was probably called Indian Creek, and built this cabin. And it's pretty much the way it was at that early period. The front porch is probably 20th century, but all pioneers wanted a front porch to shelter the front door and give them a little place to sit on those sunny days of enjoying the cool breeze that occurs from this spring. You are looking at yellow poplar logs that were hand-hewed by probably Francis Carter in about 1806, and the pioneers loved when they came to Middle Tennessee to find poplar, yellow poplar, tulip poplar, because it was straight-grained, it would split and be hand-hewn very easily, and it was very resistant to rot and insects. And you can see this has stood the test of time since 1806. You see up here the ends of the joists that are holds the floor for the upstairs. They're also made of poplar, and they were cut with a broad axe. The mortar today has replaced the clay and horsehair that would have been the original form that the pioneers would have used, but over time that would pop out, and so it's been replaced. This is a board and batten door. These are the battens, and these are the boards that would have, for any size door. This is very typical of what the pioneers would have had because it could be built very quickly. One of the real strong points of this room, of course, is the rock chimney. These are yellow rock that were probably gathered from this hillside that you find in this end of the county. It's a yellow rock, which is it's a lighter rock than limestone. It's very easily hewed into the size that you want, and you see it has probably been remortared in years ago. Got a nice wide opening, and they would have probably cooked on this. The window is very typical. It's a replaced window, but that's probably the size of the original window. And originally, it may have just had a shutter on it because the early houses in 1806, glass would have been very expensive for the Carters to have. The ceiling beams are very nice size. They were yellow poplar. And you could see at one time they had put a ceiling in here. Of course, the floor above would have been for the bedroom that would have been upstairs. This is all yellow poplar. Over here we have a dog-leg staircase, and that's because of the shape. The room is about 20 by 20, and you needed a short staircase to get access to the upper room. It's been paneled in nice yellow poplar, and the door here unusually is chestnut instead of yellow poplar, but you see we have the original hasp, and that would have been where they could lock it up. And most likely the valuables could have kept in there. That would have been used for storage. In a room this size, you want to save every inch you can, and all these dog-leg staircases have this closet for them. What we have in here, this is the breezeway or dog trot that would have been found in the early pioneer house. This would have been an open area, and it would have been used very much in the good weather for housework, and then in time they would have closed them up. This was probably the living area, and then this is going into the probably the kitchen. This is a little smaller room, but you notice Miss Nothart had taken out the floor, and this has an opening where you can see the ceiling. It goes all the way up. It gives it a more open space. Again, we have the nice fireplace there that is again out of yellow rock that is found right on this property. This is a daguerreotype of Sarah Carter Ilbeck, who was a daughter. Her husband was one of the leading carriage makers in Franklin. This is an early picture of the way it looked probably when Miss Nothart got the place. You can see here the front room, and then of course there had been a side porch there. Francis is buried in Franklin because that's where he died, but his wife Sarah is buried out here in the back lot. We're going to take a walk up to the upper field where we have the grave of Sarah Carter, and we have a lovely footbridge here. There is a spring at the head of the hollow that would have supplied the Carters their water. Carter was a tanner, so he really needed this spring to use in his treating of the hides to make leather. Okay, this is Sarah Holcomb Carter, the mother and wife of Francis's children. And you notice this is a typical grave site in that all the early settlers wanted to be buried facing east. Well, this ends our tour of the Carter House, and I hope you've enjoyed taking a peek of a pioneer house in the 21st century.